Hello, welcome to my channel. Today I'm painting roses, rosebuds and leaves, and I'm cutting all the extraneous stuff out. So this will be a shorter video than usual, but you'll get all the best bits, believe me. Here's my usual palette of titanium white, primary yellow, raw sienna, raw umber, French ultramarine blue, sap green, or in this case, hooker's green, and alizarin crimson. I use this palette for almost everything that I paint. Not talking about backgrounds today, but I used French ultramarine blue, primary yellow, titanium white, and that gives me a nice selection of greens. I'm painting in acrylics on a 9x12 panel, and I have my sketch for reference propped up beside my panel. I'm using a liner brush and raw sienna, and I'm going to sketch in my stems. It gives me a good idea where everything is going to be placed on the panel. You don't have to do a large sketch like mine. You just need a thumbnail really, just to plan out where everything's going to be, where the flowers are going to be, where the star of the show is going to be, where the buds will be, and where your leaves will be. A sketch is always a good idea, of some size or other. I'm starting with this ratty old 3/4 inch flat brush and alizarin crimson paint, and I'm going to put in the base for my roses. I like to start off with a fairly dark base. This is very transparent paint, so I put several layers on, but it's a good one if you want to paint pink roses. Alizarin crimson is a good base. I do a rough circle for each flower. I also use a 3/4 inch flat to put a mid-tone of the leaves. I always paint with a mid-tone first, followed by a shadow and then a highlight. Those three tonal values will give you a good basic painting. If you want to make your painting more interesting, then use more color, more tonal values. It just livens things up the more you can get in. Rose leaves grow in sets of 3. I always paint them in sets of 3. There could be some rogue roses out there somewhere with more leaves, but the ones I've seen have always been in groups of 3. Using the flat of the brush, I let the brush do all the work, and I pull the leaf shape in from the outer edge to the center vein, and that gives a fairly good leaf shape, I find. Adding highlight and shadow to that will make it look even more leaf-like. I've rinsed my 3/4 inch flat very thoroughly, and I'm going to paint petals. I'm using titanium white and alizarin crimson for the next stage of my petals. I'm pulling in those bigger petals from the outside edge in toward the center. It will be kind of streaky, but that just adds a little character to the petals, I find. And you can add a touch of raw sienna, or even a slight touch of green, and that will bring the level of pink down, but I kind of like this bright pink, so I'm going to go with this. For the petals that we only see the tops of, I use a sideways swipe of the edge of the brush, the very tip of the brush, and that gives me the top of the petal, the highlight part of the petal. I've never counted rose petals, and I don't worry about things like that. I just pull in petals until I think it looks rose-like, and that's good enough for me. I like my roses to look open and kind of loose. I don't like tight rose buds. I always put a couple of those in, but basically my roses are full-blown, old-fashioned roses. My roses are pretty much all the same color. I might make the lowest one a bit darker. I think I actually did, and then I changed my mind about it, so I'll probably cut that little bit out so we won't be bothered with it. And they all turned out basically the same shade of pink. The buds are a very simple single swipe of the brush with 5 sepals around them and a sort of seed pod at the base. And they're very easy to do. Let your brush do the work and use the right kind of brush for the sepals. A small brush. I think I used a rigger, a liner brush to do that part. Liner brushes come in very handy if you want to do things like stems or fine lines. I like my stems and the thorns to look interesting, and you can do that by adding colour. I use alizarin crimson, sometimes French ultramarine blue, raw umber. I sometimes mix orange out of primary yellow and alizarin crimson. It all adds colour, texture, makes a painting more interesting to look at. I'm adding some dark pink to the shady side of the roses. I'm assuming that the light is coming from the right. It almost always is in my paintings. And so I'm going to make that side a little darker with the pink. It may stay or it may change. You never know with my paintings. As the paint dries, it dulls down a little bit, and I like to add straight titanium to my petals to give a nice bright highlight. And I sometimes end up reinforcing that several times, but I like the way it looks, so I don't add anything to it. I don't mix it with anything else. I just add straight titanium white. I'm adding French ultramarine blue to my green, and I'm going to put in the shadow side of my leaves. I haven't done the sepals yet on my buds, but I will do that in a minute. Don't worry if your painting doesn't follow your sketch exactly. I decided I needed extra leaves, so I'm putting those in. It all adds interest to the painting, and it really, you don't have to follow that original sketch. You don't even have to do a sketch. Many times I don't. I'm mixing up a paler green for a highlight, and I almost always follow the same routine. I paint my mid-tone first. I cover my entire painting with a mid-tone, and then I go in with my shadow side. It's at that point when you're in the mid-tone that you make that decision. Where is your light coming from? When you've made that decision, you can go in and put in your shadows, and then afterward put in your highlight. You may put in your highlight several times. As the paint dries, it may die down a little bit, and to bring it up to your liking, you have to reinforce it. I do that all the time. I really love the alizarin crimson. It adds a certain liveliness to a painting, and I have seen roses with red leaves, partially red leaves and veins, so I always put it in my rose paintings, and I'm using that to add some little sort of interesting twiddly bits to the painting. It all adds texture, it all adds interest. For the thorns, I do a line that is at right angles to the stem and then sort of pull it down at an angle so you get that sort of thorny look. And I do them on opposite sides, just a little way apart. And I think that looks quite realistic to me, at any rate. I don't know what other people think of my thorns, but hey, they're my thorns. And also I don't do too many of them. I just do a few on the lower edge of the stem. I'm adding French ultramarine blue to my painting as a shadow for the stems. I like the effect that it gives me, and I like the liveliness it adds to the painting. I can't believe I'm only just getting around to doing the sepals. I'm using a liner brush for this. You could use a small round for it as well. They are very fine, and so a liner brush works well to pull them up. They're usually 5 sepals, and I try and make them as sort of interesting and curly as I can. The pink of the bud was still wet and I've pulled it out too far, so I'm going to show you how to correct that. All you need is a damp wet brush, and you can just brush it away, and then if there's any residue, take a powder brush. I use ones I get from the dollar store. They work really well. They're nice, big, soft, and just blend it in. And that works. You know, you don't have to worry if you make a mistake in acrylics or in oils for that matter, but acrylics is a little easier to correct, I always think. I'm mixing up an orange highlight with primary yellow and alizarin crimson and some titanium white, and I'm going to put that on the stems, and I'm really just looking for things to do now. This painting is really about finished. I think I still have to put in the not the sepals, the stamens. Yes, I have to do that. I add a little to the sepals. I just like to try and get as many colors in as I can. I feel it makes my paintings more interesting to look at. When I'm putting in the stamens, I like to dot in something dark like alizarin crimson, sometimes raw umber. It depends how I feel that day. And I just dot that in as a base and then add lighter colors on top of that. Raw sienna, maybe a little yellow. It really just depends how I feel that day. Today I'm using alizarin crimson, and I think I made an orange and dotted that on top. I looked at my painting and decided I needed a better highlight on my leaves. In fact, I'm not even sure I put a highlight on my leaves. So I've mixed up a pale yellowy green, and I'm going to put that on the leaf on the side that the light is coming from, on the right hand side of the leaf. I don't put it on every leaf. I put it wherever I think the sunlight might be catching the leaf. I could say that this painting is finished, but I've decided to add a vein to the leaves. It just adds a little more texture, a little more interest. And I don't add every single vein, just the center one. And you could, depending on how detailed you are. I don't like my paintings to be too detailed. I like to leave them fairly loose. To me, that's more charming to the eye, but it really depends on the individual. Having taken a closer look, I'm going to call this painting finished. I don't think there's any more I should do to it. And I have to be very strict with myself and force myself to stop. So I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you'll give it a shot. Have a go, have a painting party with your friends and follow along with me. And I enjoyed painting. I always enjoy painting though. And I'm pretty pleased with this. I think they look like lovely, full-blown country roses. So if you did enjoy it, please give me a like, share with your friends and subscribe. That helps my channel grow, and I'd really appreciate it if you could do that. And thank you very much for watching, and if you've already subscribed to me, thank you so much. I very much appreciate that. Bye for now. See you next time.